You're watching The Experience, Comic Culture and Sales, streaming live daily to Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter.
What the hell's going on over in England? I mean, that's my mother's country. She was born there. I could get citizenship just by filling out a paperwork, but this morning the Prime Minister resigned after 45 days. That's like 4.5 Scaramucci's. That's nothing. 45 days. I mean, what is going on? Do I have to go over there and fix it for them? I mean, I've already fixed the DC Universe, the James Bond. I mean, do I have to go fix England? Man, you think they'd be able to figure it out. They're one of the oldest countries in the world. But no. They just keep making same mistakes over and over again. It's like Warner Brothers. Man. Stay tuned for the Dan Wickline Show. Everybody, welcome to the Dan Wickline Show here on The Experience. It is Thursday, October 20th. We are flying through this month, aren't we? I mean, man, it just was October 1st. And now tomorrow, Black Adam comes out. Man, this month is flying by. But hey, cool. Good to see you. Triple B, glad you're here. I was just thinking that we ought to get the audience, the viewers and stuff to write the lyrics to go with that song, or our theme song, something about the show, and see if they could come up with lyrics. I think that would be a lot of fun. And then we can get somebody to sing it, and it would be cool. Today we're going to talk about, Ed asked for a primer for Black Adam. So I've put together some background. I can't do too much because these are some of the most convoluted characters in DC, maybe even in all of comics. I mean, Hawkman has changed so much over the years, and just Dr. Fate is not that straightforward, and even Black Adam has changed drastically. So, hey, Dale, time flies when you're having fun and when you get older. Oh, no kidding. My brother had a theory that the reason time gets faster when you're younger or when you're older is because of the percentage of your life that time is. When you're 6 years old, 1 year is a sixth of your entire life. It's huge. When you're 50, 1 year is 1/50th of your life. Not that huge. Just gets faster and faster. It's an odd theory, but I kind of liked it. Then, of course, he also had a theory about how dogs only know days by when you leave and when you come home. So, JD says, it's not a theory. There have been studies. Your perception of time speeds up as you age. Yeah. And that you forget things. Also, when you get older, life becomes very monotonous. You do the same thing over and over because your job is the same thing over and over again. So you get to Thursday and you're like, it was just Thursday. And I was just doing this same thing. It's like when you buy a car and you go out and suddenly you notice a bunch of that same car. It's because you're doing the same thing. And every time you do it, you're like, oh, what the? Yep. The mind is a scary place. All right. We're going to cover a little bit of news, and then we're going to do the primer on Black Adam. And when I'm done with that, we will talk Andor if there's time. Hey, Ed, glad you're here because the primer is for you. So we're going to get to that in just a moment. But let's go ahead and talk about the announcement today. And that is that the Image comic Geiger that comes from Jeff Johns and Gary Frank will be adapted for TV by Justin Simeon alongside Johns for Paramount Television Studios, which means there's a good chance it's going to be on the Paramount Network. Geiger, if you're not familiar, is set in 2050. It centers around a radioactive family man named Tarek Geiger, who spends his days and nights doing anything he must to protect the fallout shelter housing his family. When Geiger fights off a group of violent scavengers, he faces the wrath of the criminal empire they're connected to. What are the odds that somebody who's dealing with nuclear fallout would be named Geiger? That's probably my only problem with the story. Johns will write the pilot, serve as showrunner, and executive produce alongside Jamie, that's a tough name, Ira Klinos for Mad Ghost, and Gary Frank. The project is also executive produced by Kyle Lauren and Simeon, who recently signed a 3-year overall deal with Paramount Television. So, yeah, Jeff Johns and Gary Frank's Geiger comic will be coming to something soon. Now, whether that will be, like I said, it sounds like it's going to be a Paramount thing, trying to get more people to watch Paramount, get people other than just Star Trek fans. But we'll have to see. They might end up on a regular network, but I'm still betting on Paramount. So, yeah, that's pretty cool. Geiger has been an interesting series. I've read a couple of the issues. Jeff Johns is a good writer. He handles characters very well. I look forward to seeing what they do. And I love Gary Frank's artwork. So it says, sorry, I missed the show yesterday. I was in meetings. No worries, man. You're here now. That's what's important. So, all right. We are going to go into our primer. Let me get my notes. Some of this I probably could have done without notes, but this is going to be better and more efficient this way. All right. So what I'm going to cover is, I'm not really going to get much into the Justice Society as a whole, as in the history of the Justice Society, because it's more specifically the characters we need to know. So I'm going to cover Black Adam, and I'm going to do a big bit on Black Adam, but then Dr. Fate, Hawkman, Atom Smasher, and Cyclone. And Atom Smasher and Cyclone, they're not that old of characters, but they tie into older characters. So they're like the second generation of characters or third generation on some of them. But Black Adam, Dr. Fate, and Hawkman, like I said, are some of the most convoluted histories of characters. They have had multiple origins that contradict each other. Hawkman has been all over the place. So what I'm going to do is try to narrow it down to what I think they're going to use for the movie and just eliminate the superfluous stuff. Now, I could be wrong, but this is my best guess to give you as much information going in, because the reviews I'm seeing, both good and bad, say they don't really give you a lot of backstory on the characters. So maybe they do on Black Adam, but not necessarily on the other characters. So let me see if I can hook you guys up. We're going to start with Black Adam, also known as Teth Adam or Theo Adams. And he was created by Otto Binder and C.C. Beck. And of course, these are the guys that created Shazam. Now, the first appeared in the debut issue of Fawcett Comics' The Marvel Family, going all the way back to December of 1945. So this is six years after Superman. So it's not like he's that new of a character. He's been around a very long time. Now, DC ended up getting the rights to the Fawcett characters in the 70s. And Black Adam has really endured as one of the arch enemies of Captain Marvel's / Shazam. And I'm going to go back and forth between those two names. We've always known him as Captain Marvel, but in the movies and stuff, he's Shazam because Marvel had a lawsuit with DC over the name Captain Marvel, and it's all convoluted. But in the comics, he's Captain Marvel, but his comic is called Shazam because they can't have a Captain Marvel comic. It's really weird. So he's been a major villain for Captain Marvel and the Marvel family, or Shazam family. And he was originally depicted as a villain and the ancient Egyptian predecessor of Captain Marvel. So basically, he was given the power by the wizard Shazam back then. Now, he ended up coming to modern times, and there's different ways he's come to modern times. And in the old way, it was he fought his way to modern times, which doesn't make a lot of sense. But more recently, Black Adam has been kind of redefined by writers like Jerry Ordway, Jeff Johns, and David S. Goyer. And he's more of a corrupted anti-hero now who's attempting to clear his name and reputation. He's been featured in some big books, the Justice Society of America comics, the Villains United miniseries, Infinite Crisis, and of course, when they were doing 52, he was a big part of that as well. Now, the biggest change to the character came in 1994. So I'm not going to go and do the earlier origins of the character because I think the origin they did in 1994 really is set up on how it's going to be done. You know, it's what they're going to use. So he gets this revised origin, and Teth Adam, who's Black Adam, was born in September 11th, 1279 BC. Teth was the son of the ancient Egyptian pharaoh Ramses II, and he is able to impress one of the high priestess of Ramses, which was the wizard Shazam. He had done a bunch of good deeds. Now, the wizard gives Teth Adam the power to become a superhero called the Mighty Atom by speaking the name Shazam, and an acronym for Mighty Atom's power. Now, Shazam has his acronym. Black Adam's is different. It's the stamina of Shu, the swiftness of Hero, the strength of Aman, the wisdom of Zehuti, the power of Atan, and the courage of Mehen. These are all Egyptian gods. Now, Mighty Atom serves as Egypt's champion for centuries, but he gets corrupted by the charms of a mysterious woman. And it's revealed to be Shazam's evil daughter, Blaze, in disguise. Now, I don't think we've come across Blaze in the films at all. But yeah, so Shazam's got a daughter. And I don't know if she'll end up popping up in the movie or not, but she's part of his origin. Now, she's bewitched him, and the bewitched Adam is convinced that he and his mistress should rule Egypt, that's the best way to protect the people of Egypt. So he kills the pharaoh, which was his father, and appoints himself ruler. Now, Shazam learns of this and strips him of his powers. He encases them both he encases those powers into a mystical scarab necklace, and Adam's depowered body rapidly experiences the aging process because the magic had kept him youthful and stuff. And I guess the pharaoh at that time wasn't his father, but he did kill the father. JD says, I love the idea of someone being born on September 11th, 2,000 years before the Gregorian calendar was created. I was questioning that myself, but that is the date of his birth. Yeah. According to comics. But so all his powers are put in this mystical scarab necklace, and his depowered body, like I said, ages, and the former hero withers away into basically a dried up cadaver in seconds. In his death, he gets kind of renamed. They start referring to him as Chem Adam, Black Adam, because of how he had turned and his deeds were, turned to evil. and said, so in the comic, Shazam isn't a kid that turns into Shazam. I'm asking because if Shazam has a daughter, I hope he's not a kid. In the comics and in the movie, Shazam is the wizard. So the guy that gives Billy Batson his powers, that's Shazam. And he says Shazam to get his powers. But he's actually supposed to be Captain Marvel. But because of legal stuff, they call him Shazam. But in the comics, when they refer to Shazam, they're not referring to Billy Batson becoming an adult superhero. They're referring to the wizard that gives them their powers. So the daughter, Blaze, is the daughter of the wizard. I know. Like I said, all of this is confusing as hell. So, and I don't think they've quite done a good enough job in the films to really work that out and to make it clear. But okay, now we're going to flash forward. So instead of fighting his way to the 20th century, we jump to the 20th century, and there's an archaeological aide, a guy working a dig site with some other archaeologists, and his name is Theo Adam. And he's on this expedition to uncover Ramses II tomb and discover the remain. And while they're digging, they discover this kind of side chute room where the guy played by Dimon Hyunsu, yes, in that, not in Guardians of the Galaxy, completely different character. So basically, Theo Adam discovers a side room along with two other archaeologists. And those other archaeologists that are with him are named Cece Batson and Marilyn Batson, a husband and wife archaeology team. And of course, they're Billy Batson's parents. Now, Cece, of course, is named after Cece Beck, the original artist on Captain Marvel or Shazam. So they discover this room with Teth Adams' remains along with the scarab. And Theo becomes obsessed with this scarab, so much so that he has to have it for himself, and he kills the Batsons, basically turning Billy into an orphan. So, and Billy will find out about this in the future, which is why the two of them really become enemies. Now, what Theo discovers is that he is the reincarnation of Teth Adam. And he ends up taking the scarab and gaining the powers and starts using the name Black Adam because of the Chem Adam name that they had given him after he had died. Jay says, just got done replacing the starter in my car and now watching Dan, so I'd say pretty good. Oh, so you got the starter in. I saw the pictures on Facebook. Now, Black Adam, of course, is mentioned in the Shazam movie. I'm going to do the connection here to what we've seen already in the movies. If only your only connection to these characters is the movie, this is where we've seen Black Adam. So Black Adam is mentioned in the Shazam movie when talking to the young Billy Batson. The wizard Shazam explains that he chose a champion years ago that unleashed the 7 deadly sins on Earth, erasing an entire civilization. And this was what made him realize he had to choose a champion more wisely next time. Now, the magic then conjured up a hologram of a character of Black Adam, and it briefly shown during the scene, which looks like Dwayne Johnson. That's because the character was originally going to appear in the first Shazam movie. That was what it was planned. They got Dwayne Johnson. He committed to being in the first Shazam movie as the villain. And then between Dwayne and the producers and stuff, they realized it would be better to give Black Adam his own movie. And everything changed. And then that's when they went to Dr. Sylvanas, another regular villain for Captain Marvel. Yeah, he's got some weird villains. the three big ones are Dr. Sylvanas, who we got, the Mr. Mind, that little caterpillar-like inchworm bug that we see at the very end of the movie, and then Black Adam. Those are his three big villains. So we're getting all of them within a movie and a half, Also, when at the end of the movie, when they're sitting around, all the Marvel family is sitting around on the chairs in the Rock of Eternity, there's one empty spot. That's Black Adam. So they did set this up already in the original Shazam movie, and they're just now getting to it. Now, all right, that's Black Adam in a nutshell. Again, I don't want to go too much more into the character because it gets really convoluted. It's funny to think of an inchworm as a big villain. I know, it really is. But, all right, we're going to take a break. If you guys have any other questions about Black Adam, go ahead and throw them in the comments. I'll see what I can do about answering them. And then we'll go through Dr. Fate and the other members of the Justice Society real quick. So we'll be right back.
Did you know that every Experience show, including some exclusive content, streams on Twitch? Check it out. Twitch.tv/the_EXP. Or just scan that QR code.
Imagine being at a convention and going to an interview panel that's just for you. No bustling crowds, no hours-long lines, just you, the moderator, and your favorite comic book creators. Well, this is pretty much that. Miss Jen sits down every week with two comic book creators for a live stream interview about their latest work, and you can ask them whatever you want. It's Talking Shop, Mondays at 5 Eastern on The Experience, Comic Culture and Sales.
Who would win, Batman or Superman? It's the age-old debate, except it's so much more complicated than that. Nerd Killer Warfare every week on The Experience is your chance to debate other nerds in the questions we've all been asking for years, except we take those debates and turn them up to 11. Go to bit.ly/EXP casting or scan the QR code to be part of the show.
At New York Comic Con 2022, I write the Underfoot graphic novels with Ben Fisher and our artist Michelle Wen, and it's great to be here. You are watching us on The Experience.
Everybody, welcome back to the Dan Wickline Show. So, like I said, on my breaks, when we go to commercial, I always pop over to the entertainment sites just to see if there's anything new that pops up. And this is a headline I did not expect to see. Not in 2022. It says, Tony Danza. Hold me closer, Tony Danza. Tony Danza has joined the cast of Star's Power Book 3, Raising Kanan, for Season 3. Deadline has learned he will make his debut in the Season 2 finale airing this Sunday. Danza will portray Stefano Marchetti, the godfather of New York City mafia scene, and the most powerful man in the city. Tony Danza. Who's the boss? Tony Danza. I don't know when the last time he worked was. I'd have to look up IMDb, but who's the crime boss? Perfect, JD, thank you. Hey, Kenneth. Ed says, would it take too long to explain how both Marvel and DC have a Captain Marvel? That's always confused me. I've tried Googling it, and I can never find a solid answer. Jay says, so not a question, but I think Fahan Tahir from the 2009 Star Trek movie looked a bit more comic accurate than The Rock. I will have to say, I do love his passion, though. He's been attached to this since, actually, I think it's been longer. I think it's been like 2007, 2008 when they first started talking to him about it. Ed says, I just can't see that. Yeah. Off the top of my head, remembering the Captain Marvel thing, the thing is that they put out the comic Shazam, but they didn't put out a comic called Captain Marvel when Fawcett first put it out. And Fawcett immediately got into lawsuits because DC saw the character as a ripoff of Superman, even though he was a magical character, but power-wise and stuff was very similar. So DC sued, and I believe they actually won, but they were calling him Captain Marvel in the comics. Well, Marvel saw that and said, we can't have that. So they put out a comic called Captain Marvel, which allowed them to copyright the name, a comic called Captain Marvel. So it blocked Fawcett from ever doing a comic called Captain Marvel. But you can't, you can trademark it as a comic, but you can't trademark the use of the name, if that makes sense, because they're two common words. So Marvel couldn't block them from having a character named Captain Marvel, but they couldn't use it as the title. So it couldn't be the title of something. So that's how Marvel and DC can both have Captain Marvel, but only Marvel can use it as a comic title. DC would eventually buy out Fawcett's characters, and there's a bunch of others that came with it. I don't remember all of them off the top of my head. Plastic Man may have been one of them. But yeah, Fawcett had a whole group of characters, and DC bought them all in the 70s. So, but yeah, there were lots of lawsuits. Also, another character that got into lawsuits was Marvel Man. Again, a Superman clone over in England, because that's where these, a lot of these were just trying to do clones of what was working. And of course, the company that was doing Marvel Man lost and ended up having to do him as Miracle Man. And now Marvel owns that character. So yeah, that's just, again, I'm pretty sure that's all how it all worked. But again, it's just off the top of my head. I'd have to double check that. JD says, Tony hasn't done much during this pandemic, but he was in 2 short-lived TV series in 2017 and 2018. Looks like he's getting back in the swing of things. Well, good for him. He's been on a couple big series with Taxi and then Who's the Boss. So good for him. I have a hard time seeing him as a bad guy, as a mafia boss. He was always a little dim and always a nice guy. So, but of course, that's the character, not necessarily him, but we'll see. So, all right, let's go ahead and, before we do that, JD, what's the rest of today's schedule?
Well, excuse me. Today we do have What's in the Box coming up next with Miss Jen and Jenna tossing out the comics from random boxes around the studio. Also, they may have Travis Gibb pop in, artist and comic creator, to talk about his latest book. It's not confirmed, but he does have the link, so he might pop up there during the show. And then after that, of course, we got Space Cadets with Jenna and Bean and Shanice, and Henri, kicking it with Henri coming up at 10 p.m. Eastern until midnight with his late night comic sale show.
Very cool. It sounds like a good lineup. You guys should stick around for that. Ed says the last thing I ever saw Tony Danza in that I remember was the Disney movie Angels in the Outfield. He played the dying pitcher for the Angels. That was a long time ago. Yeah, and didn't that have Danny Glover in it too? Yeah, long time ago. But all right, let's get back to the characters. Black Adam is probably level 7 complicated. Dr. Fate is probably level 7 complicated. Hawkman is level 10 complicated. But let's do Dr. Fate first. Dr. Fate, there's been many people to call themselves Dr. Fate. It's really the helmet. The helmet passes around to different people, and that person becomes Dr. Fate because the sorcerer or the spirit of God Nabu lives in the helmet. So you'll see him talking about Nabu, and he communes with Nabu and talks to Nabu, and that's basically the helmet. So, but we're going to get Kent Nelson, and Kent Nelson has been the doctor. He was the first doctor, and he's also the most recent doctor as they kind of rebooted him. But Dr. Fate First Incarnation, and the one they're using for the film, is Kent Nelson, who appeared in his own self-titled 6-page strip in More Fun Comics number 55. It's funny how many characters debuted in More Fun Comics, and this came out in May of 1940. Yes, Danny Glover was Angels in the Outfield coach, and the main kid was Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Oh my God, that's right. Wow. Now, during the golden age of comics, this all came out. The character was created by writer Gardner Fox and artist Howard Sherman, who produced the first 3 years of monthly Dr. Fate stories. After a year with the first year, though, he had no background. His alter ego and his origins and all that, nothing. There was nothing. So they finally gave him that in More Fun Comics number 67 in May of 1941. And the rough origin is Kent Nelson discovers the tomb of Nabu, because Kent's also an archaeologist. Hey, Lyle, good to see you. But Kent discovers it when he's a kid with his father. But the problem is that Kent kind of opened the door when he wasn't supposed to, and it released deadly gas, which killed Kent's father. Released, and it came out of the tomb. Now, Nabu is the Lord of Order, and he felt pity for the child and decided to take him in and train him in the ways of magic for 2 decades, bequeathing him his mystical amulet, helmet, and cloak, as well as all of the knowledge before Nelson started his career as a mystic superhero. So he had all of Nabu's knowledge and his abilities. Now, at this point, he was a founding member of the Justice Society of America, and this was like the precursor to the Justice League, and it involves all the Golden Age characters. The original Flash, Jay Garrick, the original Green Lantern, Alan Scott, the original Wonder Woman, who I believe is Hippolyta, just down the line, all the original versions. There's the original Adam, who is just this little guy who can punch really hard. The Sandman, the Golden Age Sandman, who wasn't the Lord of Dreams. He was a guy in a gas mask and a gun that would put people to sleep. So that was the Justice Society, and Dr. Fate was one of the founding members. Now, they've revised his continuity, and he's the first mortal host for Dr. Fate. He retains the origin of the original one, so the modern version, it's the same origin, and a lot of the original adventures are considered canon. But this version of Nelson, Nabu isn't the caring substitute father figure. Nabu is kind of a jerk. He treats Nelson callously, more of a body, He puts the helmet on, and Nabu pretty much takes over. So, half the time he's unconscious when he takes over. Now that has changed over the years, that Kent Nelson has kind of regained control, and now he just communes with Naboo and works with Naboo as Dr. Fate. And I think that's where we're going to get in the comics. I don't think it's going to be as adversarial. I think it's going to be more of a, he's going to be more of a Doctor Strange type character, but he gets a lot of information from Naboo, and Naboo shows him things. There's a preview scene that shows Hawkman and Dr. Fate talking, and Hawkman's like, "What did Naboo show you? Someone's going to die. Is an Atom Smasher? Or is it me? Am I going to die?" So you can see that, there's going to be that kind of relationship. But so he's Kent Nelson, used to be an archaeologist, and now he's basically DC's Doctor Strange. You can kind of think of him that way. Now on to the most convoluted character. Hawkman. Sometimes he's a human archaeologist named Carter Hall, and other times he's a space cop from Thanagar named Qatar Hall, spelled different. Also, there's this reincarnation thing going on that, he's actually Prince Khufu from ancient Egypt, and it's a reincarnation thing. So all of these have at one time or another been canon and changed. And Jeff Johns came in and he tried to merge them all into one. And I don't think it's the one thing I think Jeff Johns did not do well, because it's still just super convoluted. Now, he was originally created by writer Gardner Fox and artist Dennis Neville. And you're going to find that a lot of these old characters were written by Gardner Fox. Gardner Fox was pretty much the guy at DC in the same way that Stan Lee was for Marvel, just 20 years earlier. The original Hawkman first appeared in Flash Comics #1. He was a backup story, published by, at the time they were known as All American Publications in 1940. They would eventually become Detective Comics and DC Comics. Since I believe they're going with the Carter Hall version, his origin starts in the days of ancient Egypt, where he is Prince Khufu, and he's engaged in a feud with his rival, the Egyptian priest Hathset. The priest eventually captures both Khufu and Khufu's consort Chiara, and kills them using a cursed dagger made of nth metal. Nth metal is a special mineral that comes from the planet Thanagar that has properties that can allow basically the control of gravity. So that's how they fly, is they use a piece of nth metal, and it allows them to be lighter than air and all that stuff. Now, millenniums later, from ancient Egypt, Khufu is reincarnated as the archaeologist Carter Hall, Chiara as Chiara Saunders, and Hathset is a scientist named Anton Hastor. After touching the same nth metal dagger used to kill Khufu, Carter regains his memories of his former life and realizes that Hastor is the reincarnation of his ancient foe. Well, Hastor figures it out too, kidnaps Chiara, and uses a magical spell to draw her to his lair. Hall uses his newly refound memories to craft a gravity-defying belt using the nth metal and a winged costume to become Hawkman. I don't know why. I don't know why he decided to go with a hawk theme or why he needed wings, but he did. And he likes to use ancient weapons like, maces and stuff like that. And he's also a great fighter. But he successfully rescues Chiara. Anton is killed by electrocution, which they loved to do in the 40s. Electricity killed more people in the 40s in comics than quicksand, and quicksand killed a lot of people. And Carter and Sandra began a romantic relationship, and they also became Hawkman and Hawkgirl, and eventually would become Hawkwoman. So they've played with that over the years, the reincarnation thing. Chiara gets killed and becomes a new character. So, and then Carter has to reconnect with her. She doesn't have her memories. it's this love story that goes through centuries. But like I said, it is one of the most convoluted because he had these three separate origins. And then Jeff Johns kind of went, we're going to just put them all together. He's going to be this ancient Egyptian guy who has reincarnated into the archaeologist, but we're still going to make the alien metal part of it. By the way, when he was an ancient, when he was an alien from Thanagar, he was a space cop, which I think is hilarious too. Ed says, it's funny, whenever I hear Hawkman, I instantly think of the character with feathers for hair on the TV series Buck Rogers. Yes, Hawk. I always loved that character. I thought Hawk was a great character. But yeah, so that's Hawkman. I think that'll be enough to what you need in there. The two other members of the Justice Society, these are a lot quicker because these are these are newer characters. They're legacy characters. And that's the thing with the Justice Society. You either get the Golden Age version or you get legacy characters, the children of them. Yeah, that ship was badass. It really was. Atom Smasher, who's the guy that grows, was created by Roy Thomas and Jerry Ordway. Jerry Ordway's name pops up all over the place when it comes to these guys as well. This was in the All-Star Squadron number 25 back in 1983. And his name is Albert Rothstein. And he originally took the name Nuklon. He was... basically, he's got these atom-like powers, or nuclear-like powers. But he changes the name to Atom Smasher to pay tribute to his godfather, who is Al Pratt, the Golden Age Atom. So in this case, he's not the son of the Atom. He's the godson of one of the members of the Justice Society. Now, Rothstein acquired his metahuman powers of super strength and control over his molecular structure, which allows him to alter the size and density of his body, from his grandfather. His grandfather was a reluctant supervillain known as Cyclotron. So, yeah, there's stories where Adam would take on Cyclotron and would stop, and he was kind of a reluctant hero, and then they eventually kind of became friends and stuff like that, and he became the godfather of Cyclotron's grandson. Comics. So Atom Smasher, you may have seen him if you are a fan of the Flash TV series. He showed up in one of the episodes. I think it was season 5. He showed up there. That was the one that had the bus load full of people with powers. I don't remember what they call the people with powers. They had their own term for it. But the other character, Cyclone, is just as interesting in that she first appeared under the name of Adam Edge Copeland played him. Yes, that's right. I knew it was a wrestler. I just don't remember wrestlers. So Cyclone first showed up as Red Tornado, but she showed up in the Kingdom Come comic, in actually the second issue back in June of 96, written by Mark Waid and drawn by Alex Ross. Now, Kingdom Come, of course, is kind of this future tale of superheroes, and she was known as the Red Tornado. Well, she's the third Red Tornado. The first one is Abigail Ma Hunkel, who worked for the Justice Society, but she would put on a costume and a metal pan on top of her head and would fight people if necessary. She was kind of a joke character from the 40s. Well, this is her granddaughter. This is Maxine Hunkel. And at one point when Maxine was a child, she was kidnapped by T.O. Morrow, who is a villain who pops up a lot in the Golden Age. T.O. Morrow is also responsible for making the second Red Tornado, or the Android Red Tornado, which was pretty much DC's version of the Vision. They both made android characters at the same time that joined their big teams. But then she discovered, what happened was that Jeff Johns came along and decided to reboot the Justice League with a new Justice Society, with Justice Society of America #1 in February of 2007. And he really loved the character of Red Tornado in the Kingdom Come comics. So he decided to bring her character into the series, into the modern day story. But instead of calling her Red Tornado, because the Red Tornado still exists and DC didn't want to stop using him, so he decided to give her the name Cyclone. And her origin basically is almost like a mutant. She reached adulthood and began to manifest unusual superhuman abilities. At one point, she sneezed and demolished her grandmother's garage. And then the next day, she awoke and found she was inside a tornado 500 feet off the ground. And that's when she kind of figured out, hey, I might have wind manipulation powers. So that's where that character comes from. She is probably the newest of the characters. I mean, Atom Smasher goes back to 1983 as Nuklon. She goes back to 1996 as Red Tornado, but as Cyclone and a part of the Justice Society, it's 2007. So that's, 15 years ago? So these are all still pretty old characters. What's funny is I've been reading comics so long that I look at characters like Atom Smasher and Cyclone and think of them still as new, because I think of the Justice Society as the original Justice Society. So, all right, let's go ahead and we will take our second commercial break. If you guys have any questions at all about Black Adam or any of the Justice Society, throw them in chat now. We'll answer them when we come back. Be right back.
Get the inside scoop on everything happening at the Experience every week. Join our mailing list by scanning the QR code at the bottom of the screen and then watching your email inbox.
Comic Collectibles is here for you every Wednesday with AR Comics for two very important reasons: to sell you rare, one-of-a-kind comics that you'll love, and to confuse AR with old man talk. You see, Rex and John are, how should I put this, ancient as the roots of the mountains. So every week, Rex and John fill in AR in yet another area of pop culture that he missed because he's too young, just didn't have the time, or just really doesn't care about. It's a real public service they provide. Come buy some super rare and unique comics, while old men explain long-dead sci-fi shows to a younger man making that confused puppy face. Every Wednesday from 6 to 8 Eastern with Rex, John, and AR Comics. Comic Collectibles on The Experience. Comic culture and sales.
Are you a comic creator? Are you a publisher? Do you make a comic book product? Do you own a retail store? Do you do something I haven't thought of? Who are you and what do you do? Let us know by advertising on The Experience and invite our viewers to patronize your product. Message the EXP on social media or email us the_EXP@yahoo.com for more details.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Dan Wickline Show here on The Experience. And Ed has an important question. Now, he, of course, thanks for doing Black Adam. I'm glad we got that covered for you. But he says, now that She-Hulk and Rings of Power is over, what are we going to be doing for homework in future shows? I'm still kind of working out what the new coverage is going to be. Pennyworth season 3 is up on HBO Max, and I did cover season 2 and 1, but I did it in chunks because I didn't find it until season 2 was out. But season 3 is out now. Titans is coming soon. Tales of the Jedi is coming soon. So there's quite a bit coming up. What we're going to cover is still going to get worked out. Also, may try some different things. One of the things I wanted to do, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to pull this off. I got to talk to a couple people, but I kind of want to take one day a week and create a comic. I mean, I'm a comic writer first and foremost, and I want to show my process. I want to take a character, work out what the plot to do with him and all of that, and then start working on the script and and kind of work it through for a couple weeks to show you guys what the process is in creating a comic live. Do some of the scripting so you can see some of the choices, things like that. Not sure how all that's going to work, and there's no guarantee that it would ever get printed. But I was thinking of taking like a public domain character so that I could use it, that type of thing. So that's one of the things I'm considering. I don't know if that would get your guys' attention if you are curious about the creation process, but that's something I've been kicking around, might do during the holidays, because the holidays it gets really slow. But also I want to be able to do some deeper dives, see what comes out of Black Adam, see what comes out of Black Panther, and some of the stuff like that. So, but we'll definitely have some good shows. So Ed says, that sounds fun. Maybe we could help contribute. I'm always wanted to create a comic. Oh yeah, I definitely would be up for taking some help. So we'll see if we can make that work and go from there. So, all right. Don't have a lot of time to cover Andor. I didn't think we would, because I felt that the Black Adam stuff was more important with the movie coming out tomorrow, where this particular episode of Andor really was they're doing these in 3 episode arcs. And the first one is always the setup. Josh says, that sounds cool. My vote's for a Shadow comic or a Miss Fury. Those would be fun. I'm a big Shadow fan, and Miss Fury is an interesting character. So, cool. I will keep those in mind. Though the Shadow isn't in public domain. Miss Fury, maybe. I can check with somebody on that one. So, the thing with Andor is, like I said, they're doing these 3 episode arcs, and the first episode always seems to be the big setup. Well, that's what this last episode Andor was, kind of fallout from the heist. And we see that what I thought by the ending of the last one, I thought the reaction, Luthen's reaction, where he was laughing, felt like it was more than, hey, we pulled it off, we're getting the money. It felt like he was excited because he had just thrown it out there that the rebellion exists. This was a statement, is what I said. And sure enough, this episode is called The Announcement. And there's a couple of announcements. The heist was an announcement that the rebellion exists. And then, of course, you have the announcement by the Empire that they're going to be tightening their fist. They're going to be taking more control, making everything worse for people. And we see the fallout of that at the end with Andor, when he gets arrested for basically doing nothing. He just gets caught up in a moment and ends up getting 6 years in prison, which I think is how it'll loop back around to him being part of the rebellion. But we see that it's changed everybody. Luthen's mother, Mavra, or his adopted mother, is now wanting to stand up and doesn't want to leave Ferrex with him. This allows Debra to stand up to Blevin and take, assert herself with the idea that the rebellion is using these little thefts all over the place. And she makes this play and it works and it moves her up the ladder. So, and the ISB is changing. And she comes out and says, just because we look at everything in sectors doesn't mean the rebellion does. They don't care what our map looks like. They're just going where they're going to go. And again, these are all big changes from fallout from this heist. So where the episode didn't have any big reveals, it had more puzzle pieces, putting things into place. Like they're still building the frame of the puzzle to see what this series is really going to be. Every once in a while they fill in, oh, we got all the parts for this area, we got it put together. But there's still a big part of the puzzle undone, and they're still building the frame or the edges. And that's what this was. This was another building of the edges so we can take a look at the next section. And Cyril going in to work for the fuel capacity thing, him getting the menial job. Eventually, I think that will lead with him working with the ISB in Debra. Luthen and Mon Mothma. Mon Mothma's pushing her way. Luthen is pushing his way. But both are trying to move the rebellion forward. And now that there's been this big announcement the rebellion exists, he can start pulling together all the divergent factions that are out there into building it as an actual rebellion. Now, there's a good chance Luthen isn't going to make it out of this series alive because we never see him as part of the rebellion. So I think whether it's in this season or next season, Luthen's days are numbered. But I think he's going to be the key architect for all of this. So I think that's what the next chapter is going to be, is bringing Andor on board fully, getting him out of prison, stuff like that. Also, we got to see a KS droid, which means that we might get K2SO. It would be, yes, Stellan Skarsgård is very expensive, but worth it. That's I think that's what his last name means in Norwegian, is worth it. So yeah, maybe we'll get a K2SO. Maybe Alan Tudyk will pop up and we'll finally get to hear his voice. But I thought it was a good episode. But again, not a lot happened other than setups. So all the pieces. Oh, Vel is going to have to go and try to take out Andor, but now he's in a prison, so he's kind of safe there. So they have to get him out to kill him, and it gets very complicated. So all these pieces are in play now, and now we have to see what they're going to shift into next. So I think the next episode will be a lot more important, and we'll talk about that more in depth next Thursday. So, all right, guys, we're going to wrap it up there. Remember, stick around for What's in the Box and Space Cadets and Kicking It with Armory and all the other fun stuff here. Have a great weekend. I will see you either on Pop Go the Writers Sunday night or back here next Tuesday where we'll talk about something. Ed says, do you have any interest in horror since next week is the last week before Halloween? We could talk about the new Hellraiser movie on Hulu, Halloween Ends, or something like that. I'm not a big horror guy. I'm a classic horror guy. I like my old monster movies and stuff. I don't like some of the newer ones, but I'll see what we can do about doing up some horror and maybe talking about Halloween Ends. So, all right, guys, stick around. Have a great weekend. Have a good night.
Get the inside scoop on everything happening at the experience every week. Join our mailing list by scanning the QR code at the bottom of the screen and then watching your email inbox.